Welcome. Hi, welcome. Can you all see me? Can you hear me this morning? It's morning for me. It's morning for me. Martha, Eric Sr., can you see me yet? Just want to make sure I'm here. Ah, wonderful, wonderful. Welcome. And for me, it's United States of America and happy Valentine's Day. So I'm going to hopefully have a nice day here. And I hope that those of you who've already celebrated the day have enjoyed yourself. So welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Boni-esther, and I'm seeing you in the chat, and I'll get a chance to see where you're from. Oh, yes, joblessness is hard. Faisal. Good morning, Olga. Good morning, world teachers. So glad to see you here, that you've taken some time out of your day or your evening to be with us. I have a presentation that I'll be sharing for you. Thank you, Olga. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. It's a time to remember our sweethearts, our children, and this will be my first year without my daddy. So that he was my first Valentine. Hey, Susanna, friend of mine, some people from the United States, Cambridge School of English. So we are English teachers. We're world language teachers. We're teachers from around the world. And today's a special day. And I'm here with you on Etacude's channel, which I'm so glad to be here. Eric has invited me. And this is a week's festival of teachers sharing their expertise and encouraging teachers from around the world. So I salute your profession and our shared profession. And so you'll want to be able to check out the other people that are sharing this week as well. So I chose Valentine's Day because I wanted to talk about the love of teaching and give you some teaching tips. So when you come on in, say where you're from. And when I start my presentation, hello from Pakistan, all over the world. And we're thinking about the world, the regions of the world that are suffering right now. Our Valentine's heart goes out to them too. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Iran, right? The whole world is here. Let's get every continent. I don't know if we'll ever going to, Eric will have to say if he ever had anyone from Antarctica, but I maybe I'll be the first one. So anyway, I'm going to share and present my screen to you. If that could happen automatically, that would be great. Wonderful. So I'm providing for you today a summary of some of the aspects in this session today. And we're going to have a little of me talking, a little of you responding, and then at the half-hour mark, I'm going to be entertaining questions. So feel free to respond to the topics that are presented here in this stream. Love of teaching and teaching tips I love, because it couldn't just be theory and mush, mush, sweet, sweet, but it has to be, we want to walk away with a few goodies. So I'm going to give you some of my best goodies a little bit later on. Ah, happy birthday, Saddam. Happy birthday. An English instructor here. So my role, I serve mostly as writing and presenting professional development in Massachusetts. I've done some in Louisiana, and from time to time, other entities in the United States have wanted me. And I do it related to English language learners. We call them, though, the English language learners, or multilingual learners in the United States, and mostly work in Massachusetts. I do a lot of courses. I have courses, and I've had some international people join them for matsol.org. So we have courses listed there, and some of them I teach. I don't teach all of them. And just for fun, I like to create. I like to share. So I'll show you my social in a slide if you want to take a picture of that, or actually that will be linked somewhere in this stream or at the bottom afterwards. So feel free to share this recording with some of your colleagues. I hope it's a little Valentine present to teachers. So feel free to respond to any of the topics as we go along. On social, I'm on YouTube, and I have a channel called Bonanny and Me Learning English Together. And I'll tell you why that title in a moment. And then on TikTok, I'm Boni.esther, and I love me my TikTok. I just love to do inspiring things, funny things, and I do have a few things related to language learning and tips to share along the way. And I'll probably be opening another TikTok channel And my name is there on LinkedIn. Boni-esther is my first name, and Enquist is my last name. So welcome so much. So glad to see you all filling up the chat here. So why the YouTube channel? The YouTube channel, and actually I'll tell, because you're probably seeing the picture. We always go to the picture, right? My name is Boni-esther, and I'm a Nana. I have 11 grandchildren, and some of my grandchildren call me Nana, but put that together, and one of my daughters wrote the name Bonanny. So I'm Bonanny to some of my children, grandchildren, and I'm Nana to the rest. And why did I start a YouTube channel? During the time when we had at-home learning, or we were teaching from, teaching, yeah, teaching. That's exactly what I mean to say, at-home learning. I can't see my screen, and oh, yes, I remember. Thanks. Yes, you can. Uh, Thank you, person who's helping me in the background. You can show my face. That would be good. So during the time that we had that, a district came to me and they said, "We've never taught online. We don't know how to do this. We have 70 teachers of English language learners. Those were just the language. They have thousands of other teachers in the district. And they were like, what do we do?" And so they said, "We'd like to hire you to do 2 hours a week for paraprofessionals, 2 hours for teachers, and just bring us stuff." And that's where I met Etacude and Eric, because I was desperately searching. And I will say, in the middle of the night is a legitimate, I was there looking for places online, and I remember searching for games, because how do you do this interactive thing? How do you make a lecture or a presentation interesting without interaction? So I wanted some games, and hence I met Eric and have been following his live streams that are this time every Sunday for me. So I've really appreciated being part of this community and meeting some of the teachers, and I've gotten to know them a little bit. And there, if you search in YouTube under Etacude, and look for my name, you'll see a couple of other presentations I've given. So back to our slides. So I've had varied roles in teaching. I was a Spanish teacher privately and in public schools, and volunteering, like for free, loving it. Content teacher of mathematics, science, and some other subjects. I've been a one-on-one tutor, and I really respect those of you who are doing one-on-one teaching. It's really wonderful. The growth that you see in students is so apparent. And I was helping her with language and literacy. I was a program director in two districts, and I do professional development. And I'm an adjunct professor, but I just do that in combination with my professional development courses. So was trying to think, why do people go into teaching? And so I looked up some of the ways that people love, what we love about teaching. So number one, we love to change lives. We love to see a student who doesn't think they can do well, and then we teach them and they grow. We love to open up a world for students to be able to learn something new. And I think of that as both skills, like an instrument or a language, right? As well as bodies of knowledge. And I think right now we're so blessed with the internet that we can have a question like, I wonder how this happened and why did it do this? And then we're learning, right? And then we might spend hours doing so, which is probably the heart of a teacher, to keep learning. So changing lives is something, it might be our reason. So when I go through this list, feel free to type in your reasons why you love teaching. And then it could be children. There's some people that they always knew, I love little kids, and they are like saying, I'm going to be a teacher. I know I will. So it could be that, or other age groups. I've taught kindergarten students. I've also gone into nursing homes, and I do presentations and devotionals and things like that. So I pretty much love all ages, but I have the most experience with middle school and high school. Then the continual learning of our own content, right? So you might find somebody who plays the violin, like a dear friend of mine, so well, and she wants to teach it to people who also need a mentor over them. So we are continually learning our craft, and we just can't help but share it, right? And then creativity. And when I saw this on the list, I thought, I think this is my biggest lane. I think this is the most personal part for me because even if I know my objectives, I still can add my own flavor to it. I can still add if I have a classroom, the decorating of the classroom is fun. If I have my own materials to be able to, like even the slides, which are from Slides Go, they have a lot of Valentine ones. I can add my own personal touches. I can get creative in the way that I teach because I teach not just let's learn language, but let's use our bodies. Let's use time and space. Let's use visuals. So that part is really important to me. So then the collegiality. And I thought about that, and we're in this together. Even if I'm here with you right now, I work from home, but I'm with students online. So this feels collegial. This feels like we can raise the level of professionalism. We can support one another, right? We all have something in common. And finally, maybe it's the calendar because maybe we have these longer vacations and Eric is a wonderful example. He's travels the world for I'm a little jealous of my dear friend. But we have these times built in where we can refresh. Maybe we have a new semester and new students come in. And it's that change of seasons. I come from New England in Massachusetts, and I love the change of seasons. The coldness, it's been crisp lately. We can feel the crisp spring air coming. And so the calendar. And I also was teaching Spanish and not being paid, volunteering it at where my children went to school. And I was loving that. But so when I saw what teachers get paid, I thought that's pretty decent. So in some places of the world, we get paid more than others, and I know sometimes some of us feel undervalued, and that's legitimate, and it's true. But but those might be some of the reasons. So I'm hoping you're putting in there. Oh, I'm seeing some of these answers. Lifelong learning. Yes, we both grow, right? This mutualismo in Portuguese says mutualism, right? We get things from one another. Wonderful. Okay, so let's keep going. So, all that said, the reasons why we love teaching, there are some reminders of things we may all need. Number one is don't disqualify yourself. I studied a little Spanish in middle school. No big deal. I studied Spanish for 2 years in high school. I was very good with pronunciation, and I was a little bit of a naughty student from my dear teacher, who was an exiled judge from Cuba. And he would say, "Bonnie, you are very vivacious and you flirt with the boys." So I flirt with the boys and I was vivacious. So anyway, so I loved the language. I loved playing with the language. I I just loved everything about it. Then I went to college and I thought, let me take a little bit of Spanish. And I had someone who was supremely qualified in the language, a native speaker from Spain, but he wasn't a teacher. He was the kind of teacher that he had a book and a workbook, and we lined up in rows, and he said, "Okay, so row number one, you do number one, number two, number three, number four. You know this drill, right?" And in some countries, maybe that's the way we do things, but all I know is I thought of it more as a mathematics class by figuring out where I would be called upon than about language. It wasn't conversational, it wasn't instructive for me. And so my Spanish career ended first semester freshman year. And that was a shame. So he wasn't qualified to teach. And even though I wanted to be the learner, so that happens sometimes. So let's keep looking. And yet, all that said, don't disqualify yourself. I also was, later on, I was asked to, I was volunteering in a school where they had a lot of Brazilians. And I was volunteering with my Spanish skills that I only had from high school, right? And they said, if you learn Portuguese, we'll give you a job. And so I said, okay. And I went to one of the few places in the United States that has a strong Portuguese down UMass at Dartmouth. And I studied for 6 weeks and I took my grammar from Spanish and I put it together and I learned Portuguese. And now I speak Portuguese as well as Spanish. And if you understand what I'm going to say, I am fluent, but not accurate. So some of us aren't accurate. So I do not qualify as a Spanish teacher of higher proficiency levels, and nor of Portuguese. But I could teach anybody who's at the first and second year. I would be adequate in doing so. So evaluate yourself honestly. I just showed you how I might do that to say, I'm not qualified to teach at those higher proficiency levels and fairly. And the fairly means, and we've talked on this channel before about people who said, I'm not a native speaker. I'm not a native speaker of English. I have an accent. So that does not disqualify you from being an English teacher. I've had wonderful English teachers who were not completely without an accent in English. So please don't disqualify yourself. But in terms of grammar, I knew that I didn't have that capacity. But fairness means if you're taking a job for the first year, cut yourself some slack. Be kind to yourself. Sometimes people want to know, what curriculum should I create? Well, if you're a first year teacher, take whatever book they give you and follow it, because a content creator has created this, writers have created this with some sort of information, it's informed by good places, and you'll learn over time. It will be self educative. So be kind to yourself, and when you're going through a hard time, just know, say, I can give what I can give. Then the other one here is stay in the lane that gives you life. So I started college thinking I was going to be a lawyer. And why I made that decision was because I was smart, I was a female, and it wasn't a big industry then. I was good at mathematics, and I just decided what profession I should be in. And my parents were kind enough to give me that sense of me doing what I want to do. They didn't tell me what to do. And yet I didn't discover my passions until my senior year, where I took a music class, I took an art class, and I took an education class. And I said, that's where I belong. And since then, those things have reoccurred in my life. Not so much the art part, except for I still love photography. So, let's see what else I put here, so if I can remember that. So if it's sucking the life out of you, if you feel it's a wrong fit, you know, be honest with that with yourself. So we have a few more things here. Keep developing your skills. I took Spanish classes after those bad experiences, and I got a major in Spanish because I knew I was passionate about it. I would go to the store. I remember once going to a toy store and hearing people speak Spanish, and it hurt my heart because I thought I could be doing that. If I'd had the right encouragement and the right practice, I could be doing that. So I did end up going back and learning more Spanish. So let's go back to our list. So keep developing your skills. And I'm thinking, if you're here today, that's who you are. You want to develop your skills and your knowledge. Seek out support and relationships. And this is the beauty of some parts of social media, right? Now this is helpful to be able to connect with one another. And when you need some support, there are certain things that I'm not good at with record keeping, with data that sucks the life out of me, and editing little fine-tuned picky things. But I'm more of a creator, idea person, and brainstormer. And finally, keep your focus on serving. The guest yesterday on Etacude was saying, if you're in this for the money, it's probably not going to be a good fit in terms of what, certainly one can make money teaching, of course. And yet, if that's our focus, that can get a little dangerous, in my opinion. So now let me move on a little bit to some teaching tips that I love. And this is where, if we had tons of time, we could talk forever, but I'll show you some of my favorite things. So, classroom management, and Eric speaks a lot of this on Etacude, and I was thinking about some of the things that help with that. Having classroom norms and we co-create them with our students. We say, what do we want to do? We want to believe that everybody has good intentions. We want to give airspace, let everybody talk. If we want students to raise their hand, then we would put that on the list. But we could also renegotiate that list. But we create norms to say, like a verbal contract, do we all agree on this? And we come back to it from time to time. So classroom management might be that someone has gone outside of the classroom norms and we just show the poster again. And then with classroom management, sometimes it's not the students, it's us, right? We might be in a bad mood, we might be ill prepared for something. And are we edgy? Are we um, super sensitive? Or are the kids picking up on the fact that we're not prepared? And I have done lessons when I wasn't prepared. And that's why for this particular short presentation, I over prepared so I wouldn't have that happen again. And then I think of classroom management often comes from not having super clear directions. So in the chat, you can be putting things that you find classroom management where you've contributed to that somehow, even inadvertently, or where you have problems. You could put that in the chat. But we'll keep going through the list. And then monitoring classroom energy. Are they restless? Do they need to stand? Do they need to move? Right? Are they bored? Did I give them something that was like they were done in 2 seconds and wondered why we insulted them with our too easy task? Or was it too challenging and it was too frustrating and everybody felt embarrassed? Then one of my favorite ways was to have this prize box. And I had a file cabinet when I had middle school students, and I would put little things, little toys, little I would buy some kit of something, break it in half, put and fill this drawer up with little things that were not of value. I did make a mistake and put a water pistol in there, and then the schools were like, no more water pistols, Ms. Enquist. So anyway, but I put these prizes in there, and what I would do is this. Perhaps we came back from lunch and the students all sat down. Then I would say, "Oh, Saul, go get a prize." And the other students would be like, "Why? Why should he get a prize?" And I said, "Well, I told you we were going to study math, and he has his book out and his paper and his pencil. So obviously he's ready." And so that little way of preempting to say, I value students just doing the right thing because the teacher had invited them to do so. And so that became a wonderful tool. And I'll tell you a story. So I had a student, Igor, and he was and probably is a tremendous artist. He can really draw. And I would be teaching a lesson, and he would be behind me and he would be illustrating the lesson. Such a gift, right? But anyway, I got a letter from him. And when he moved to another city. And when he became a senior in high school and about to graduate, his task was to write a letter to someone who had made a difference in his life. And he wrote the letter to me. And I was the first teacher that he had when he came from Brazil to the United States. And he said, I wish I could go back to that prize drawer just one more time. So that love that we share with our students um, can be very permanent, right? It lasts forever. And they're all friends. I'm friends with them on Facebook. So having a little rewards for the behaviors you're looking for. And then the silent method. Um, one of the people that I worked under, her name was Beverly Glockemeyer, and she was at the high school. And this is how she would classroom management. She would just stand at the front of the room with half a smile until the students themselves decided to behave. Until they're like, shh, shh, miss, she's talking. No, come on, shh, shh. And letting them do it. Developing a culture of when the teacher's ready, we'll be quiet. And I was blown away by it. I had a different way of doing things, but I would say that I did her way a few times and it was very helpful. And then teach social emotional skills. Teach the kind of things we're looking for in the classroom. So there's a organization called Castle, and I'll share the next slide with you. And The framework, they have a framework. It's called the Collaborative for Social and Emotional Learning. So you might wanna check them out. But anyway, I'm gonna teach you a little poem with gestures, and this is how it goes. So you could do it with me, and maybe nobody's watching you. So it goes like this: I can know myself, right? I can know myself, and then we think about list making. I can manage myself. So manage myself. I can know myself. I can manage myself. I can listen to how others feel. Let's do that again. I can know myself. I can manage myself. I can listen to how others feel. And then I can get along well. So these are like handshaking. I can get along well. I can problem solve, right? We get an idea. Problem solve. Let's do those two again. I can get along well. I can problem solve with these social and emotional skills. So we'll do that together and we'll go back and you can read the words with me and we'll keep looking at the words. I can know myself. I can manage myself. I can listen to how others feel. I can get along well. I can problem solve with these social and emotional skills. I actually do, um, I can listen to how others feel. I actually put a heart there. So I'd forgotten that on Valentine's Day. So I think I should be fired from today's role. So that's just one of the things I love is the creativity part. I love to take these concepts that there's a beautiful framework that you could probably find and print out for yourself and consider developing these within the classroom for the student's own benefit, right? And for the culture of your school. So there's some suggested things in a lesson flow that we often talk about. People say, how should a lesson go? And we set a context for learning. Put some Velcro that they can stick today's learning on. We connect it to students' lives, keeping it personal and relevant. We cover the key concepts and vocabulary. And in language teachers, you'll want to address grammatical structures as well. Then we practice with concepts and new language. So I'll show you a few activities to do this. Make the lesson relevant. Learning names, for example. So in this, I have these are from clips from some of my. I don't have a big channel. I have I don't know, a dozen or so videos that I made during the times of that we were at home teaching. Also because I watched teacher videos and I thought they're not interactive enough, even if they're just student facing. They need to have more interaction and built-in practice time. So you'll see that in my videos. So here I'm teaching first name, middle name, last name. So keep it personal, right? And keep it relevant, meaning high school kids fill out forms, first name, middle name, last name. And that is a little different in different parts of the world, right? The way we do last names and stuff. Then when you're teaching the titles, Mr., Mrs., Ms., those we have in English, right? Then make it personal. I am named after. Esther was my fraternal grandmother. I was named after her. I am, and then another way to say that, because I always like to teach things at least one way, but teach it another way as well. I am the namesake of my grandmother. So I am named after my grandmother. I am the namesake of my grandmother. Then vocabulary. We want to pre-teach a strategic set of keywords, phrases, and idiomatic expressions. Word lists are helpful if they're not alphabetical. Alphabetical begins with the letter A, which is like arbitrary. They should be lists by utility, like utility. If I'm doing adjectives, we're talking about animals, I'm talking about adjectives. What animals eat, there's a column of nouns. How animals move, there's a column of verbs. Another column of nouns for the parts of an animal's body. Then I want to give the definition, but I want to have meaningful practice of using that term, having it come out of students' mouths. And then we want to capitalize on cognates, words that are spelled similarly and have the same meaning. I think 30% of Spanish words and English words are cognates. Capitalize on them if they exist. Use visuals, use music, which we'll be doing in a moment, and then create posters for visual reference so that students don't have to hunt in their workbooks so they can just see, oh, those were the vocabulary we used when we were studying the farm or when we were studying international travel, and offer additional words. So one of my mottos is never just teach one word. So here we have the word sayings, adages, proverbs, idioms, and figures of speech. They're relatively they're synonyms more or less of synonyms of one another. And so offer those. Maybe I wouldn't test and require the students to have learned all of them, but offer more than one word. Teach idioms by themes. So this was a video about looking at the bright side of life. Every cloud has a silver lining. This is a golden opportunity. So it was all related to one another. Then use realia, real stuff. So in this case, I was teaching the word silver lining. So I have a necklace that I'm showing you silver, and I have this dress that's reversible. So I'm showing the word lining. Lining is a little tricky, right? You have to show a video to so it's not the dress, it's not the fabric, it's not the silk, it's the inside part, you know? And some of the other things in a lesson flow later on would be all of the engagement, the inquiry, discussion, the practice time. Then giving student feedback and getting student feedback, especially if we try a new strategy. How did that work? Was it helpful? What do we need to do later on? And then extending the learning. So let me give you a few examples of those. Here I'm showing realia, real stuff, and we're using the language of comparison. It's comparing a coaster with a pen. So I'm showing that, and we get practice with that. I'm showing many things. And an innovative journal that I found, and I'm putting that in the little handout you can download for yourself. It's from ShellyGrayTeaching.com, and it's a digital journal actually. And so at the end of a lesson, when I was tutoring a student, I put what's on my mind. It's cool to identify our feelings. Learning. We learned that song lyrics can be figurative and literal because I had gone over the lyrics in the musical In the Heights, that particular song. We went over it. We were looking at both literal and figurative language. Then gratitude. I put in my journal. My mommy coming to visit from Maine. I love having long talks with her. And finally, positive thoughts. I love the not too hot weather. We should all be grateful. So those are what I wrote. And my student, she was writing at the same time. And then we were reading one another's. And it was so edifying. And she wrote, what's on my mind? I was feeling sensitive. She started our lesson and she wasn't happy. She was feeling very tender. Then learning. We learned in the heights and the double meaning. We read about sharks. We did a few things that day. Gratitude, Bonnie being my teacher. Acai, that fruit from Brazil, and it's also kind of like an ice cream, they eat it. And my dad being okay. So she was sharing her heart, and it was a time in our lesson where I had built that in for her to do so. And then positive thoughts, watching stuff that makes you feel good can uplift you. Right. So that's a nice little way to engage with students in sort of like a dialogue journal, but not going back and forth. So I'm skipping a few things, and I want to teach you. Um, uh, oh, this is a rap, not a song, and it's learning the countries from south of the U.S. border. Um, and so it goes like this. So you can say it with me. I'll do it 2 times, and I'll do it with a Spanish accent, so that Eric can learn something. Bless his heart. Mexico, Belize, Guatemala. Let's try that. México, Belice, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua. El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua. Costa Rica, Panamá. Costa Rica, Panamá. And the beauty of this is it's not an alphabetical list of the country. It's not just I have to do it linguistically. If you follow this red line, you'll see it goes Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, clap, 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 Panama, clap, clap, clap. So I like to do things that help cognitively as well as just linguistically. So use music and gestures. And this is an example from TikTok. So I will sing a little song for you and you can just sing along or follow me on TikTok and watch it a number of times. And it goes like this. The things that I have two of, beginning with my cheeks, two eyes that blink, two ears, I think, two lips and a set of teeth. But I only have one forehead, one nose, one tongue, one chin, one brain within that tells me when to sing this song again, but faster. The things that I have two of, beginning with my cheeks, two eyes that blink, two ears, I think, two lips and a set of teeth. But I only have one forehead, one nose, one tongue, one chin, one brain within that tells me when to sing this song again. And you get the idea. So that's an example of some of the little ditties that I've been writing forever in my adult life and even in childhood. And then also we've talked about having an extension activity to take something beyond a lesson. That's something that they can do at home and do some research or respond to other people at home. So there's my social again. And thank you and have a happy Valentine's Day. We're going to have now entertain your questions. So what do we have here? I hope you all, thank you, Jean or Jean, I'm not sure. So I hope you've all shared some things about yourself. So do you have any questions? Any questions? You can put those in the chat now, and I'd be glad to start reading from there. So there will be a document that you can download, make a copy for yourself, excuse me, and um, and share with other people as you like. Do you have any questions for me? And Eric, you can jump on and join us, my dear friend here. How are we? How's the chat looking? You got a chance to.
Boni-esther, hi.
Hi.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So even a seasoned presenter and teacher like you got a few tips?
Well, I think you taught me so much, especially, keeping the students engaged and making it fun. Unfortunately, I'm not very musical, but I think some of these ideas, even someone like me could use,
Yes, you could.
using rhyming and songs. And I can truly see how our students enjoy it. Well, I think just the way that you presented and prepared for this live stream, everyone watching, I can see it's got 150 likes, so people really enjoying it. And yeah, I think it was amazing. It was so well structured. But I wrote down a couple of questions here,
Hmm.
and I wanted to go along with the theme of a love for teaching. And I see we've got some. Mikhail says, nice suggestions. I really love them. John, more resources. You can check out the channel. Thanks from Russia. Yeah, I think we've got so many teachers from everywhere. Everyone, thank you for joining. Now, back to the questions I've got
Yes.
about a love for teaching. Listening to your story of how you started learning and learning different languages just to teach it and learning all these techniques. But many people are curious about your first year of teaching. I get this question a lot. So,
Yes.
can you tell us a bit about your first year of teaching? Where was it? How was it like? You know, um, what did you learn from it?
Yes. So I had done some little teaching in a private school with very few students. So I don't remember back that far. And then I was at a high school where I was going to volunteer like a substitute and the first day of school, the French teacher and the Spanish teacher didn't show up. And I wasn't thinking I would do it for long term, and I certainly got rid of the French part really quickly because I had no skills there. But I remember overwhelmed, and I knew that the other teachers were very competent. And I mean, like, they could tell you, "What are you teaching on May 2nd?" And she said, "Well, if it's a Wednesday," and I was like, "How do you know that?" Because they've been teaching for years. And actually, when I sat in on the classes, it wasn't maybe as engaging as mine because I like to do more creative things. But I was intimidated. But I was with a staff in a foreign language room, and they knew their language. They'd studied it, and I was just a mother who was um, getting into the field. And so it was intimidating. And I remember there were high school students and they're big. And when they don't want to play, they let you know. But I had one student and nobody liked him. He was a little naughty and he didn't pass, but I worked privately with him. And and to get him just to pass because he was intelligent and he was actually Korean, South Korean. And he came over one time with his mom to my house to make something. It's like I couldn't believe it. And so we made this great connection, but it was intimidating. And I did ask a lot of questions and I felt inferior to the other teachers who knew how to, oh, we just check, this is how we do to see if they're engaged and if they're listening and speaking. I'm like with a paper and pencil. So it was hard. It was hard, but I pressed on, and then I went and got a master's in teaching English as a second language, and then another master's in teaching in educational administration. But it was hard compared to
I've got a
teach.
follow-up question to
Yeah,
that, but first we've got some questions from the audience.
wonderful.
Sheriff, he's got a question here. Strategies for teaching literature. Now, it's not a strong suit of mine, but I've got some ideas. How about you? If you were going to teach some literature, a book, maybe a poem, how would you go about teaching something like that?
Yes, I haven't done that as much because I've worked in the more with English learners, and it wouldn't
Mm,
be that would be more English language arts. And I
mm,
will say that I would probably want to find the themes. My
mm,
adopted daughter, she took a literature class and was reading something by Poe in high school in 10th grade. And I remember she was reading along with the class, and at the very end, some irony happened, something ironic happened, and everybody in the class was like laughing except for her. She didn't get that
mm,
this destiny that somebody had put on someone else was fell on them. And so I think making sure that the theme is clear, and I think
mm,
with English, with people who are struggling readers or students with disabilities, it's chunking it out.
mm,
And it's finding the beautiful language in literature and also unpacking the organization of it. What's
mm,
happening? How is the writer orienting the audience to this topic? Why are they spending so much time on description? Look at all, it's listening, speaking, it's listening, sensing, all the five senses. I would make those things very transparent. And then the ideas would be perhaps the students could use those and transfer it into their own writing. So we're looking at
mm.
the masters. So that's about all I can say, but because I'm sure
Well,
Sharif has way more
well,
to
well,
say.
no, you just said something I totally agree with creating something. Now, if I think back to my own high school career, we had to do a lot of war poetry, and it's difficult. So that was the theme, and some teachers would just okay, just read it and tell us what you think about it, write an essay about it. But I had a teacher, so I think what's most important is understanding the general theme. And then also, obviously, the students need to know the difficult vocabulary in the literature. And then I, I got a new teacher, and she basically took us through, if it was a poem, line by line, and she would ask us questions that challenged us, like, what does this word mean? Is there a synonym for this word? Why do you think it's in here? How does it compare to the next line? So it kept us busy, and so we had to analyze the literature as we went along. And I think we really have to challenge our students with questions. Why did the writer put this in? And what is the difference between the start? And there are many things that you can go into the alliteration and the figures of speech that you can put in. So that was very interesting. And then I really want to also say that at the end you said you want to create something based on that literature, because if they just analyzed it or they wrote something about that, that's one way of doing it. But if you said, okay, I want you to write a similar poem, you can use similar words, or you can say, okay, I want you to focus on some of the adjectives in this piece, or but get the students to create something of their own,
Yes.
using the literature as a base, and that's a
Yes.
better way for them to also understand
Yes.
it.
Yes. That's the mentor text. It's a mentor text, and we learn from it so that we could produce that.
And then we have teacher Laura. She's been here from the start. Great presentation. How to keep students engaged during the whole class. I have a pair of students who work and participate, but the moment I start explaining a new grammar topic, they start yawning.
You're really good at that. You're really good at that, Eric. So I would certainly kind of go over the classroom norms. Eye rolling, and yawning. These are disrespectful ways. So I
Yeah.
would somehow have covered that. I wouldn't maybe call it out at that moment because I think that would be to
I
make the
think
students defensive. But
so.
tell me what you
So
would do.
what's important with engagement is that the students have limited focus. So you want to kind of separate your lessons into different segments where you start with an activity, or you do this, you do that. And I like to prepare my students for each. So I'm going to tell my students, guys, listen, we're going to do this activity. It's going to be really fun. And then after that, I'm going to explain for maybe 5 minutes this new this new grammar topic. And then we're going to do some activities based on it. And I think it helps students to know, okay, well, this is going to be maybe 5 to 10 minutes that I've got to focus on this. And by preparing them for that and them knowing what to expect, it makes it easier for them. But if you just go and you say, okay, well, I'm going to teach now, they don't know how long they have to focus, and they don't know what to focus on. So I think it's very important to let your students know what's going to happen, and and the time frame.
Right. Perfect. I'm going to put that back in the slide, add that as a line item in my slideshow.
Reading the chant in a Spanish accent was really amazing, but isn't it taking the importance of pronunciation while learning vocabulary for granted here?
I will answer that. I just did it for the sake of time. So for the sake of time, yes. I'm pretty good at my Spanish pronunciation, but that wasn't my purpose. My purpose was to tell you, don't just give, if you want to write chants or raps, don't just put them alphabetically, do it meaningfully. And I thought I could say it in English and I would be even better pronouncing, but I thought I would do that just for Eric, because Eric does have a little problem with buenos dias. Sorry.
I truly appreciate it.
Dias.
I had a nice chuckle as soon as you said that. I was like, okay, I'm going to pay attention now.
So no, I pronunciation, and if you ever had me teach you English pronunciation, I can be pretty intense. So
okay. Well, we've got John here, and he asks, what's the most challenging things for an English teacher? Now, before we go this, I want to preface this because we talked about your first year of teaching. Now, there's some statistics out there that many teachers leave the profession in the first 3 years, and so many teachers have very challenging first and second years, and they just decide, okay, listen, this isn't for me. I can't continue. What do you think about that? And also, do you think there's a way that we can help teachers develop a love for teaching and also improve their skills so that they feel more competent and in control of their classes?
I think there is a way, but do we always find it, and do we always offer it? I did find that sometimes teachers are like your aunt who brings a dish to your family and you all love it, and then she won't give you the recipe. There are teachers who are more protective of their tricks and don't support you. So there can be that competition even. And I think in the States, we usually have new teachers have a mentor, but is it
Mm,
significant enough time? No. So I think like when I don't get something in my environment, I'm going to find it elsewhere. Like
mm,
I do a lot of different things with teaching, and I don't know anybody just like me. So I like hanging out and connecting with people who do just my job. So you might have to get it yourself.
mm.
So I don't know. I think it's a daunting task. And one woman said to me a year ago, she said, teaching is hard, days are long. And that really stuck with me. It is hard because it's so much of you out there. There's so many places to fail or to feel like a failure. So I think that's back to being fair with yourself. What were you thinking, Eric?
Well, the easiest way is to give us more money. You know, that's the easiest way. But it's such a shame because I know that in South Africa we are one of the countries that spends the most on education of our GDP. You know, we spend the most on education. Yet South Africa, well, there are many different schools, different public schools and private schools, but South Africa has one of the worst students or rating of students in the world.
Mm,
You know, so how does that happen where the funds are there, but still the students are struggling? And so obviously there are reasons for that. But I think beyond money, um, teachers that get into the profession and they're struggling, they're in difficult schools, they're in difficult environments, they're learning the tricks of the trade on the go while they're working, feel secluded. They
yes.
feel like they're
Yes.
alone. They feel like they don't want to go to school tomorrow because they don't know what to do, and the students are out of hand, get out of hand. And so I think the first thing is, you've got to build a community around teachers,
Yes.
especially when they move in.
Yes.
I think so often everybody's focused on their own work, and yet mentorship programs are there. But I think there should be more than one teacher helping someone.
Yes.
And some schools do that, but still,
Yes.
many teachers fall through
Yeah.
the
I
cracks.
work with one district and they're very forward thinking in this, and they have a cohort of 15 people every year that they they train them, they have them put in 2 classes with me, 1 class with other people, and they're their own support people, even though they might be all new or paraprofessionals entering the field. Yeah, there is something about that newness needing to be, it's a little desperate, and so getting more support from other people like you, because a seasoned teacher, a veteran teacher might not have enough time even.
Mm.
It's hard. So there's no magic bullet for that one. There's no, so
Yeah,
we're sorry. We just send the love because we
we
can't
just send
send we
love
can't
and
send the solution.
yeah. I'm also not sure
Yeah.
um, if anybody asked me, okay, Eric, you've got to work with the government. How can you help teachers? I mean, I would have some ideas, but nothing
Yes.
that would be
Yes.
groundbreaking. You know, we don't
Yeah.
that's not our area of
Yes.
expertise.
And
But
isn't,
the
yeah.
least the least we can do is try and share ideas and
Yes.
activities, and
Yeah. And the
that's it,
worst we
and
can do
resources.
is just blame everybody. The
Yeah.
students, the parents, the government, the leadership. That's, but that does happen.
Well,
I Yeah.
that's why this live stream of yours is so important. Is sending love out there. Instead of just being pessimistic and hating the profession and sitting on teachers. So
Yes.
I think we should send more love
Yeah.
into the world.
I did see a question back here about grammar. Like, it's in our country, in the States, we used to talk about grammar, nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and then we didn't. We don't talk about grammar.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
now it's coming back in, and we're talking
it
about
is.
noun phrases and verbal phrases. And so I, grammar in isolation is something we really don't do as much here in the States. It's really embedded. A sentence frame that says, I would like to, I am considering, I
Mm,
could, all of those kind of modals taught at once, but just in a conversation, right?
mm,
It is more in line with what we do because we teach a lot of English within the content classrooms. not
mm.
necessarily for beginners. They need to learn phonemic awareness, pronunciation, decoding, all the horrific. And I'm very sorry for the English language and our orthography, our spelling, sound connection. I apologize on behalf of the English world.
Yeah, it's something I'm very careful of is or are the trends, the trends in education. That's something I'm wary of
Hmm.
because often something comes and it's all people talk about,
Yes.
and I think sticking to the basics and
Yes.
trying to integrate everything, which is great because we're getting to Sharif's
Yes.
question here about how can we
Yes.
integrate four skills, and
Yes.
that's the same with grammar. How can we integrate grammar into teaching all these
Yes.
skills?
Yes. And I think there's a moment in some of our lessons for isolating those,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Because like listening, if you say I'm just listening, then you got to
yeah,
shut your eyes. I mean, like it's like you can't give yourself sometimes we do these in isolation and build up skills, then we integrate them. And I
yeah,
think the best way is through academic discussions, academic conversations where we're building up ideas, but we have to have listened and learned a lot of content and a lot of vocabulary. Then we're going to
mm,
practice speaking it. And then writing, there's tons of ways to do writing collaboratively that is
mm,
really more effective. One of my favorite ways would be to have the same piece of text that's not organized well. It has a lot of grammar mistakes, some spelling, word choice mistakes. Give it to teams of teachers,
yeah,
then teams of students, then tell them to be quiet because we're having a competition. And you remake that, use highlighter, cross out sentences, reorganize it. You make a better piece of text, then showing it to the students. So we're working at all four of those skills together. And that's a
mm.
super way to integrate them.
Yeah, the way I think about it is if you're an athlete and you're training, and say in my case, let's say when I was learning how to do kickboxing. So obviously, I'm going to learn the movements. I can do that in isolation. I'm also going to strengthen my muscles in other ways. And sometimes I'm going to do it at the same time, by doing certain exercises. And I'm also going to bring it all together by sparring, where I use all of these skills. But I'm not just going to focus on only on one thing. And I'm also not just going to integrate everything the whole time. So there's a time and a place for everything.
Lovely.
But you do want connections between these skills.
Yes.
That's the
Lovely.
same with grammar. Uh, we as teachers have to learn from our hearts. Very nice.
Yes. Yes.
So many people joining. I see we've got almost 80 people online. Um, Boni-esther, I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you so much for all your kind support and love that you give not only to the channel, but especially for me. Often, I go through tough times and you always send me a kind word. So I really want to say that I'm grateful and I appreciate everything that you've done for me and the channel.
It's my
Um,
pleasure. I hope people look at this as their if they don't get a Valentine card today, they go, "I got it." And it was 1 hour long, and I can watch it again and again, again, and I can share it with other teachers.
Yeah, everyone, happy Valentine's Day. All the best for you and your loved ones. I hope you have a fantastic and splendid day. We've got another live stream tomorrow where I think it's Martin's turn. Martin from,
Wonderful.
wait, let me double check. I don't want to throw him under the bus.
Professional
Tomorrow
development.
is Martin. Yeah, Martin, continuing experiences. Boni-esther, final words from you.
Final words. I'm glad that I was dragged into the teaching profession. In my senior year, I when I took that education course, and then things just opened up in the rest of my life, and I'm just delighted because I've been able to inspire the next generation of teachers. And so I hope you see me on TikTok. TikTok's my favorite way to connect. So I know there's bad stuff about TikTok. Don't watch the bad stuff, but just I've learned about playing ukulele is my new passion, and connecting with people all over the world, practicing my language skills, learning a little Quiche. So it's a pleasure. Love this
Yeah.
channel. Thank you for your being there in the night when I was panicking. I owe you some money from that contract, Eric.
Everyone, Boni-esther's links are in the description below. please subscribe to her TikTok and YouTube channels. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Blessings. Happy Valentine's Day.